Picture this. It's a perfectly ordinary, bone-chilling January afternoon in Boston's bustling North End. The year is 1919. Workers are just shuffling through the cobblestone streets, kids are playing after school, and horse-drawn carts are making their daily deliveries. But looming directly over this peaceful, everyday residential neighborhood is a massive, incredibly heavy steel storage tank, standing some 50 feet tall. And inside it, over 2 million gallons of thick, dark molasses. It's just another quiet winter day in a thriving city until, suddenly, it isn't.
Now, destructive forces are usually pretty predictable, right? We inherently understand things like a raging fire, a violent storm, or the devastating impact of weapons. We know the warning signs, and we know how to brace for impact. But the people walking beneath that towering steel tank, they had absolutely no context for what was about to happen. The only warning they got was a bizarre series of auditory cues. The massive tank began to violently shudder under the immense pressure. Deep, strange metallic groaning sounds echoed across the waterfront, almost like a giant ship straining against its moorings. It was a terrifying, unnatural sound, contrasting so sharply with the peaceful street scene down below.
And then, with a deafening roar that literally shook the foundation of the neighborhood, the tank violently ruptured. Millions of gallons of dense, heavy molasses just exploded into the streets in a fraction of a second. The immense steel plates of the tank were actually ripped apart like shrapnel. In the blink of an eye, an ordinary winter afternoon was transformed into an unimaginable, surreal nightmare. Okay, let's dive into this explainer and see exactly what happened.
Section 1. An unlikely destructive force. The Great Molasses Flood. We are talking about a literal tidal wave of syrup here, bursting forth with unimaginable kinetic power.
And this brilliantly illustrates how an ordinary baking ingredient transformed instantly into a catastrophic force. This incredibly dense liquid surged outward in a wave that peaked at 25 feet high and moved at an estimated 35 miles per hour. Let that sink in for a second. This wasn't some slow, sticky leak. This dark, towering tsunami had enough sheer physical weight to completely crush surrounding buildings into splinters. It snapped thick telephone poles like twigs and tore apart massive steel elevated railroad structures as if they were made of paper. Desperate pedestrians and horses were swept away in the deluge, and when rescue workers arrived at the disaster scene, they found themselves helplessly trying to navigate through a suffocating, chest-deep wreckage, physically fighting the freezing, hardening syrup just to reach the trapped survivors.
The day a wave of molasses destroyed Boston, the grim reality of this bizarre tsunami was absolutely devastating. This suffocating wall of syrup tore violently through the city streets, leaving a catastrophic human toll in its wake. 21 people tragically lost their lives that day, and around 150 others were left seriously injured, trapped beneath the freezing, hardening debris of a completely shattered neighborhood. The sheer weight and viscosity of the molasses made escape nearly impossible. And the cleanup would take months, with the sweet scent of the disaster haunting the city for decades afterward.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that word destroyed. The sheer scale of how this event destroyed Boston immediately sparked a desperate search for answers. I mean, why did the tank fail so catastrophically? Well, investigators descended on the ruined waterfront, carefully examining every rusted rivet and shattered steel plate. And what they uncovered was a shocking tale of corporate negligence. We're talking rushed construction, dangerously poor materials, a fundamentally flawed design, and a complete lack of proper safety testing. The controversy surrounding the operating company actually triggered a massive multi-year lawsuit. This legal battle ultimately revolutionized industrial safety standards, holding corporations accountable and making this bizarre disaster a landmark moment in American engineering and legal history.
So how does an ordinary, everyday ingredient become a wave that destroys a city? Looking back at that quiet Boston neighborhood, it completely defies everything we think we know about how disasters unfold. It leaves us with a lingering, provocative thought that forces us to look at the everyday world just a little bit differently, wondering what hidden dangers might be lurking in the most mundane places. Because sometimes history's most terrifying disasters don't begin with a weapon or a storm. Sometimes they begin with something as ordinary as a tank full of molasses.